Okay, so you hear the word meta pretty much everywhere, right? But what does it actually mean? Is it a company, some kind of virtual world, or something else entirely? It's a word that can be kind of confusing, so in this explainer, we're going to nail it down once and for all. And this is the exact question that kicked everything off in our source material. When you hear that, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Because honestly, depending on who you ask, you get some very, very different answers. Now, for a lot of people, the first thing they think of is probably the tech giant, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram. And look, that's not wrong, but it's really just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Or, hey, maybe your brain immediately jumps to the metaverse, that big futuristic idea of a shared digital universe where we all hang out as avatars. And yeah, that's another huge part of this whole thing for sure. But it still doesn't tell the whole story. And then, believe it or not, there's this third answer that comes up, and it's something totally different: the weather forecast. I know, it sounds like a joke, but this one moment just perfectly shows how tangled up this word has become. Okay, so let's try to untangle this maze of meanings. First up, we're just going to line up all the usual suspects and see where all this confusion is coming from. All right, so we've basically got three main contenders for what meta means. There's the company, there's the big idea that the company named itself after, and then we've got this total wild card: a government agency that just happens to have a super similar name. So let's kick things off with the most straightforward one: Meta Platforms, Inc. That's the parent company that owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, the whole shebang. The name change was a big strategic move, a lot like when Google did that whole shuffle and created its parent company Alphabet. It's a way of saying, hey, we're bigger than just this one social network. So you might be asking why they even changed their name in the first place. Well, it was to signal their massive, all-in bet on this idea: the metaverse. I mean, the whole vision is this incredibly immersive digital world, like the next evolution of the internet. A place where you're not just scrolling through stuff on a screen, you're actually inside it. And just to prove how real this confusion actually is, get this. Right in the middle of a deep discussion about virtual reality, one of the speakers brings up the Met Office. That's the UK's National Weather Service. It's just the perfect example of how these wires get crossed in a real conversation. Okay, so let's just be crystal clear and put these two side by side. One is a massive global tech company trying to build virtual worlds. The other is the agency that tells you if you need to bring an umbrella tomorrow. They're in totally, completely different universes, even if they sound kind of the same. So, right when the conversation is getting all tangled up with companies and weather forecasts, a message comes in that just cuts right through all that noise and gets to the real core meaning of the word. And this is the question that really gets to the heart of the matter. Beyond all the brand names and corporate strategies, meta exists as a concept, as an idea. So what does that meta actually mean? Well, at its absolute core, meta just means something is self-referential. It's when a thing, a story, a conversation, even a painting, kind of takes a step back to comment on itself, on its own existence. I know, that can still sound a little abstract, right? But there's a really simple trick to get it. Just try thinking of the word meta as meaning about. Let me show you how that works. Okay, let's take a movie, for instance. In a normal scene, you've got two characters. Maybe they're talking in a car. But in a meta scene, one of them might turn and say, this feels just like one of those generic car conversations they always write into movies. See? All of a sudden, the movie isn't just telling a story. It's a movie talking about being a movie. And hey, this happens in our everyday lives too. Talking with your friend about what to get for dinner, that's a normal conversation. But stopping and saying, wait, hang on, are we having our weekly 10-minute argument about where to get food again? Now that is a meta conversation. You've basically just hit pause, stepped outside of the conversation to talk about the conversation itself. Okay, so once you really get this whole self-referential idea, you'll start seeing it absolutely everywhere. And here's the kicker, the really funny part: the hosts from our source material, the ones who were so confused by the word, were actually being meta the entire time, without even knowing it. No, seriously. That's right. Throughout their entire radio show, while they were struggling to figure out what meta was, they were constantly and hilariously demonstrating the very concept they were trying to understand. Just listen to this moment from the show. They're live on the air, on their radio show, talking about how they could produce a better radio show. They're literally using their radio show to talk about making their radio show better. It is a textbook example of a meta discussion, and they have no idea. And it didn't stop there. This just kept happening. They talked about their sound editing, about using new tech to make the broadcast better. They were even planning out where to record next. They weren't just doing the show. They were giving a live running commentary on how the show gets made. All right, so we've waded through corporate branding, futuristic virtual worlds, and this idea of self-reference. So what's the simple takeaway here? What do you really need to remember? Okay, think of this as your cheat sheet. When you hear the word meta, chances are it's one of these three things: the company, the virtual world they're trying to build, or the clever self-referential concept that underpins it all. Three totally different meanings, all packed into one little four-letter word. And now that you know this little trick, you're going to start spotting this meta stuff everywhere, in movies, in your conversations, maybe even in the way you think about things. So my question to you is, where are you going to spot meta next? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.